Yes, I think it's a terrible policy, and I speak in the fact that my own wife has only just finished doing her PhD. She's in her mid-50s. She felt the pressure somehow, the wish to do this, and some of my best friends are doing PhDs. You know, thank God I'm too old to bother. I think it's a terrible tendency. I think it will destroy. I think that in America you do get these very bright people who are so busy with their footnotes and their references, and they're looking to Europe and so on, that then when it comes to design, they fall on their face. You know, I mean, there are a few wonderful American architects. I think Tom Main is brilliant, one of the best architects, one of the best teachers I've ever known. Absolutely seeping architecture. And quite capable of putting a few words together. I think Stephen Hall is a fantastically good architect. I think. You know, there are a few, but in the schools are dominated by these architecture school types, and I think that's terrible. And I'm almost a lone voice, and it's interesting that Beatrice mentioned it because I know her quite well, and I know, and she's the wife or companion of Mark Wigley, and he is an intellectual architect, although he did graduate as an architect, as did she. In fact, she was in the same year in Barcelona as Enrique Moraes, which is interesting. And I remember we were once at a conference in Chicago, in MIT, which is a conference actually on the discussion of architectural history, which for some reason I was involved in. And interestingly, and I think it was Beatrice who invited me, and in the lunch break, interestingly, for somebody who's thought of as a historian and critic, she said, "Hey, come on, let's go out and have a look at Stephen Hall's new building. It's really good." And we burst out of this room, she and I and about two other people. We went up the street, we had a look at this new building, and we were enthused about it and discussing it. We felt we wanted to see some real architecture, not theories about architecture, even though we were supposed to be talking about that. And I feel this very, very strongly, and I think there's a whole lot of the Bologna thing, which is just prescriptive, you know, and which the bad schools will follow to the letter. The good schools will probably say, fuck that, you know, we'll do something else. Or we'll find tricky ways of getting around it. But there's a terrible tendency for so many countries now to want at least the influential teachers, maybe not somebody who comes in on a Thursday afternoon, but the influential teachers to have a PhD. What happens? You get somebody who's creative and bright, and they suddenly spend 5 years pissing around with footnotes. I mean, I know it. We've just cleared our floor at home from my wife's endless rows of books with tags sticking out. And this, don't move that book because it's got footnotes. Don't move that book because it's cross-referenced. She's also just produced a book, so it gets more complicated. The whole floor is full of these things with tags and cross-referencing and notes. And you say, yes. But what's that got to do about designing, you know? It's an excuse for objectivity, which I'm not sure is always a very brilliant thing in architecture. And I say that having written 9 books, you know, so I'm quite capable of using words if I have to, but I thank God I didn't have to waste 4 or 5 years pissing around in libraries. You know? I was drawing things instead. I could go on for about 3 hours on the subject, man.